is Wake Up Missouri with Stephanie Bell, the Zimmer News Team, and your host, Randy Tobler.
Whether by diplomacy or supporting Israel and what they're doing, whether it comes forcefully or voluntarily, Iran needs to end its nuclear program. It's as simple as that. That's got to be the end state.
Senator John Thune echoing what all of us are thinking, all of us are talking about. How is it going to end this now 6-day-old war effort? The Israelis versus Iran needing our exclusive bunker buster technology to, I guess, bring resolution to the end of their nuclear program. At least that's the plan. I'm Randy Tobler along with Stephanie Bell, John Marsh, and Drake Whitman. We're glad to be with you. Thanks yesterday for Peter and Jennifer for sitting in. I caught some of the show while I was on the road on assignment, and great listening. Thanks for being with us, Wake Up family. More rain today. I think this time last year and the year before, I remember sometime in mid-June, we started a 6-week or more drought. You remember that? Seems like it's been a pattern. Not so far this year, John.
Yeah, it was a multi-year drought. We had, 2 or 3 years there. It was in dire straits, and Missouri farmers were headed all the way into southern Arkansas to buy hay and all that, and not an issue this year.
No, but when you go to fuel your haying equipment, the prices are going up now. After they'd taken a little bit of a dip in the late spring, early summer, with the economy sort of cruising along and energy prices down. Now with this new conflict, things are up. I paid another dime or 15 cents more per gallon yesterday. Stephanie, how about you?
It was still 2-something in Ashland, which I think is pretty good.
$2.99 is what I'm seeing.
Oh, it was lower than that when I left Ashland.
I saw $2.93 in Ashland yesterday.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, and then with your farmers, you got to wonder, has it been dry enough for them to even bale hay yet? I don't think it has been, right? It's so wet that it's pretty incredible. I haven't seen year to date total rain totals, but we have to be way over the average, you know?
Well, the reservoirs are replenished. They were down, so the water table should be looking pretty good right now. And I hope we haven't had too much rain for all the crops. I haven't heard any farmers saying that. I mean, I guess that can happen, particularly after things just start to come up. I don't know. Not an agri-expert at all. But there is this ongoing question is creating some division within the Republican ranks. We hope to talk to Dr. Bob Onder, who represents, of course, the 3rd Congressional District, this very strange sort of oblong district that stretches from mid-Missouri all the way to western metro St. Louis. And see what his thoughts are, what the buzz is. There are some moves afoot among various Congress people, particularly some of those in the, I would say, more cautionary, dare I say, isolationist camp that are, I guess, contextualizing this the same as the failed conflicts in Iraq and Afghanistan and saying, we should never step foot. I don't know. I think this may be a little bit different. If you think about it, that this is the context is a little different. Afghanistan, to my knowledge, as a state, the leader never came out and said death to United States and, building nuclear weapons with the goal of putting them on a long-range ballistic missile. I didn't hear that coming out of Iraq.
When we talked to Heritage Foundation's Colonel Woods the other day, Dakota told us that regime change in Iran absolutely will have to come from within with the people, and he kind of pointed to the failed regimes that showed up supposedly on our side in Iraq and Afghanistan after the fact.
Yeah, and I think the deal there wasn't it, John, that those were sort of propped up by us and
exactly.
Yeah, they were in a way our puppets. I mean, I think it was all with good intention, but I don't really care whether they have a democracy Western style in those countries. I just want them to keep to their own, pump their oil. Be nice to let their women speak and get educated, Stephanie, wouldn't that? A little sweetener on the pot there. But I mean,
right.
I mean, still, at the end of the day, I think we've found that regime democracy and nation building doesn't probably cut the mustard.
But I saw a lot of new polling out yesterday, Randy, and I think not only divisions within the Republican Party, but within, citizens. There was a lot of polling yesterday about, should we become involved and how involved should we become? And I think people are really divided on that issue.
Right. And they are. And within Republican ranks and conservative ranks, tons of disagreement. And I mean, there's a pretty fierce battle going on between, Mark Levin, Tucker Carlson. Tucker Carlson got in Ted Cruz's face the other day. I don't know if you caught that.
That was wild. I did.
Wow, something else.
He was really mad that Ted Cruz didn't know the population of Iran.
Yeah. Tucker looked awfully pompous and sort of petty with that.
That's kind of his MO, and I've always liked him.
Yeah.
But I didn't like that.
Yeah, there's a time and place for that when it comes to the actual facts that matter. But like Ted Cruz said to him, whether it's 70 million or 700 million or 900 million, whatever, 70 million or 93 million, I guess. Who cares, right? It doesn't matter.
Yeah, I really liked Tucker Carlson until he went to Russia. Do you remember that? Yeah. He went to Russia to see the grocery prices and all that. And I thought that was inaccurate, sight on what Russia is, because their money that they get is a lot less than what we get. Their earnings, their disposable income and all of that. So it just made it, he kind of propped up Russia in that time, and I didn't really like that.
Yeah, I agree. I don't know. I think he's tried to maybe just to get, I guess any publicity is good publicity. You're trying to build that brand off of a major platform. Maybe that's driving it, but I think it's driving some people away that otherwise are really very, very, very fond of his style, his investigative depth, and the things he does. But sometimes, I don't know, a little bit. And
Tucker is Tucker at times.
Yeah. That's
just ask him.
Yeah. But I remember reading an article about him. It was either in the Washington Compost or the New York Slime, I forget, about how he is, or maybe it was the Wall Street Journal, how connected that guy is, and how, then this was when he was at Fox, how fearful people were of him, because he just was able to get the inside dirt and sort of expose people for either the hypocrites, or the corruptionists that they are. Not that people would ever do that in Washington, D.C., but he was good at that.
Yeah, I think he just released some of the clips from the Cruz interview, and I think the full interview is coming out today. I think, and I think he got him because Ted Cruz at some point said we, and he said, wait a minute,
Yeah.
U.S. isn't involved. Like, you've said we weren't involved. It's we now.
Oh,
like,
yeah.
we're, and so, and Ted Cruz said, oh, we're supporting Israel, so that's why I said we, but... the pizza meter was off the charts last night, Randy.
Oh, was
Apparently,
it? Apparently,
yes.
The pizza
a lot of
meter.
people were.
You better. For those who are just joining us, Stephanie's new secret weapon that she shared with everyone here at Wake Up, as far as predicting when shall we say tumultuous events are about to unfold. The pizza meter. Can you tell us about that?
Yeah, apparently there are folks out there who have nothing better to do than to watch the pizza orders roll in, and the pizza companies are good enough now. They have enough technology that they say oh, now is a really busy time, busier than usual, and so they kind of look at all of the pizza places close to the Pentagon, and typically if there's a surge in pizza orders, that means everyone's at the Pentagon and something's going down. And
ordering in.
It's correctly predicted quite a few military actions. And so, we heard, Trump was in the Situation Room for a long time. There was some chatter on Twitter that he was going to give some sort of address, and then they called the lid last night. So, it feels very uncertain right now.
I couldn't agree with you more. That of course, I guess that's a lot easier to click the right button and find the pizza meter rendering rather than go to the Pentagon outside the Pentagon and count office lights that are on.
Reddit was tracking it, and under the heading of "We the Pizza,"
that's fine.
They said the Pizza Hut literally across the street from the Pentagon. Their output, they said, was up 250%.
Well, and they said there's also, there's other indicators as well, and they kind of watch them, and I'm not, insider DC enough to know, but they said, oftentimes you'll see deserted bars because a lot of the staffers and other people, go out in the evenings, and it's slower than usual because everyone's, I guess, eating pizza at the Pentagon.
Well, we'll have to see if the pizza meter is right or wrong or not. Hey, our number, should you want to join in on the program, if you want to call in, 800-529-5572, 529-5572. And for texting, 573-874-9390. You can call on that one, too, but the other number is the main call line.
I thought it was interesting. I was dialing around on some of the bigger networks the other day, and CBS News was doing a live shot with their reporter who was outside the fence standing at the end of the runway at Whiteman Air Force Base, presumably waiting for the B-2s to take off and head to the Middle East. So,
oh boy, yeah, everyone's got their eyes on Whiteman, don't they, John? Yeah,
big time.
And that's such a beautiful, beautiful piece of flying equipment. It's unbelievable. I have a friend who is involved in one of the parts that goes into that plane. He showed me a picture as they rolled that out of the hangar for the first time, and I mean, it looked like one of those scenes out of like some surreal futuristic Star Wars movie. I mean, it's an unbelievably just sleek plane, you know.
At $2 billion a crack.
Yeah, well, I guess you do get what you pay for.
Yeah.
You know, one of the saddest things that I've seen about this bombing is that the last flyable F-14 Tomcats got blown up in, I don't remember if it was Iran or not,
yeah,
or if it was
Iran.
Israel, but yeah, the last ones, Top Gun fans, it's gone. The original Top Gun, they flew Tomcats, F-14s, and no more flyable Tomcats.
Yeah.
It's so sad.
And then an F-14 had a role in the Top Gun Maverick as well. But I think the dispute was whether they were airworthy or not, or the Israelis just took them out to take them out.
Yeah, yeah. Well, we are involved in the war. I mean, we and other neighboring nations there around Israel apparently are using their distant technology and capacity from sea and from land to help shoot down some of these incoming ballistic missiles. And reports are that I don't know whether they're keeping some of their powder dry or whether they're running out of missiles, but the latest barrage overnight, our last evening and early morning this morning was 30 or 40 missiles. It wasn't a big deal. It wasn't like 150 or 200, you know. So I don't know what Iran's got planned, but we will be talking with Dr. Bob Onder because, of course, I'm sure that it is the talk of Congress, both in the House and in the Senate, as far as, you know, how do we need, someone's filed I think it was Tom Massey wanted to make sure that this, if we get involved in the war, that it takes congressional approval, some kind of a congressional resolution for that. Whether that goes anywhere, I don't know. We'll ask Bob about that, along with the Medicaid and the FRA cuts, and maybe he can help explain. I'll do my best to try to help with that. And I think congressional safety as well. And then we're going to talk to a police officer from the Hauswirth. He's also been a sheriff's deputy in a different county here in mid-Missouri, and a drug task force officer, about the policing that went on in Minnesota and about the policing in our streets in our metro areas, and just to talk a little bit about if and how that's changed since the summer of so-called love in 2020. All of that coming up on Wake Up Missouri. And right after this, in a few minutes, Stephanie with the Daily DC Rundown.
You're listening to Wake Up Missouri.
How many people live in Iran?
92 million.
Okay. Yeah.
How could you not know that?
I don't sit around memorizing population tables.
Well, it's kind of relevant because you're calling for the overthrow of the government.
Why is it relevant whether it's,
because,
it's 90 million or 80 million or 100 million? Why is that relevant?
Because if you don't know anything about the country...
I didn't say I don't know anything about
Okay, what's the ethnic mix of Iran?
They are Persians and predominantly Shia. Okay, this is cute.
It's not even... You don't know anything about Iran.
Tucker and Ted going at it. Here's Stephanie with the Daily DC rundown.
Yeah, I don't. So the full interview on that drops today, but Tucker has taken a sharp turn and, of course, was recently criticized by the president. So I'm waiting for that full interview to drop so I can. But there were at least a few heated moments that made the clips yesterday. Obviously, Iran is on everyone's mind. Trump yesterday called for the unconditional surrender of Iran. So far, the conflict continues. More missiles over our nighttime, and we're continuing to watch whether or not the U.S. will get involved. Also on the agenda today, there's a big hearing in D.C. led by Senator John Cornyn and our own Senator Eric Schmidt. That is a hearing getting into the concealment of Biden's mental decline. Schmidt, I heard on Fox yesterday talking about the hearing. It's the first of several I think they've got scheduled. Today, we're expecting to hear from 3 witnesses. Theodore Wold, who was an assistant attorney general during the Trump administration, Sean Spicer, and then a legal scholar from the University of Virginia Law School, just about the dynamics and what's going on. So I hope they continue to dig. These former Trump administration officials, I'm kind of like, I want to hear from who was around Biden at the time and what they knew when. But they are headed, but this kind of kicks off their promise to do some digging. So
I wonder why they have Sean Spicer, because he's sort of an inflammatory character. You know what I mean? He was a controversial one, yeah.
Yeah, so...
I would think someone like a Kayleigh McEnany or someone would be... or Dana Perino or someone, But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see how it goes.
See. We are getting some good updates down at the border, Randy. They announced yesterday that I think the total number of undocumented immigrants apprehended was 95, which is a record low. So Tom Homan's doing great work, and so is President Trump there.
Did you see where there were zero released into the country?
That's right.
I mean, that's amazing.
Zero. Not even one.
That's 100% decrease. It's unbelievable.
Good. Very good. Other news we're going to get today, the Federal Reserve will release its economic outlook today at 2 p.m. Eastern. Jerome Powell will have a press conference. After that, we will talk expectations and other financial news in the Morning Bell at 8:25. Also, we're getting word that if you are a TikTok lover, that they are getting another 90-day extension of the divestiture. Randy does not love TikTok, but...
No, I like TikTok. It's fine.
I mean, that was a bipartisan bill, and Trump's like, yeah, we're just going to kick the can again.
I just don't like just ignoring the law. I mean, those are the Congress did that.
We're not ignoring it. We're just pressing pause, Randy.
Okay.
Also, we got some new legislation yesterday. Well, the Senate passed some legislation. It still has to go over to the House. This is the Genius Act. It's a cryptocurrency bill. It was bipartisan in that the final vote was 68-30. 18 Democrats voted yes, just 2 Republicans voting no. But this is set up to regulate stablecoin, which is a particular type of cryptocurrency, which is tied to the U.S. dollar. So we've got a crypto czar in there. It's becoming increasingly used by regular citizens. So people have been kind of wondering what are the feds going to do, and this is really the first step. First time they've really done anything. Also, Kristi Noem went to the hospital yesterday over an allergic reaction.
Allergic reaction.
Yeah, those can be scary, though.
They can be pretty bad. Now they'll need to carry the official DHS EpiPen. Be back in a minute.
I think just local news.
away. Good hands by Allen. And Sheldon comes up with the steal. Sheldon going coast to coast. And here we got another breakers here. As J.C. Sheldon goes right after Sophie Cunningham. It was a hard foul, no question. I'm blaming this all on the officials tonight. It is totally their responsibility. That's a hard foul. That's a flagrant foul. And if they had taken care of the business earlier, we wouldn't be in this situation right now.
Well, there was the call on what was really quite a conflagration there in the WNBA. Now, let's set this up. So you have the team that Caitlin Clark is on, Indiana team, right?
Indiana Fever, yeah.
And they have Sophie Cunningham, who's a Mizzou alum.
Yeah, she played for Mizzou, I think, like 2015 to 2019. And she was trending last night on Twitter, and I'm like, what is going on? Well, I guess the other player had there were several flagrant fouls.
Against Caitlin.
Yeah, and they like gouged her eye. Yeah. And I mean, it was just really, I mean, we're used to it now, I think, in games against her. I mean, you see it and you see it and you see it. And people have been kind of calling for like, hey, you know, she needs a teammate who's going to help her out and step up. And Sophie Cunningham is now being called the enforcer because it was basically, this flagrant foul was basically in retribution for all of the stuff they had been doing to Caitlin all night. And I believe she ended up getting ejected from the game. There was quite a tussle afterwards, and folks are like, you don't want to mess with Sophie Cunningham because apparently she earned a black belt at a really young age. So she also knows how to throw down. So everyone was cheering Sophie on and saying, yeah, like somebody's got to step up and stand up for when they're just treating Caitlin Clark like this.
So when there's mean girls getting mean against Caitlin, we need
mean back.
We need a meaner girl.
Right.
Yeah. Okay. Drake?
Yeah, and you know, the one thing that comes to mind when I see all these flagrant fouls and people getting ejected is that you have a hefty fine to pay. Normally, whenever it comes to like 90% of sports, I mean, if you wear the wrong socks, you can get fined. But you know, it's really nice because, I mean, Caitlin Clark does appreciate her team members. There was a fight earlier this year, and she paid both of their fines for them. And it's just it's great to see that she's being very appreciative. And I love Caitlin Clark, and that's the only way to guard her.
Now, there was my hero, my winner, the non character that was the center of this event winner was this announcer. Listen to what he said.
I'm blaming this all on the officials tonight. It is totally their responsibility. That's a hard foul. That's a flagrant foul. And if they had taken care of the business earlier, we wouldn't be in this situation right now.
Now, I think there's an analogy there. I got to have a beer with that guy because we need to bring him on the show and have him affirm what I've said about law enforcement. When we let people get away with smaller infractions, it's not if, it's when they will proceed to larger infractions, right? And I think we hear that a lot in sports, right? When you see it a lot in hockey, when early on there's some, pretty roughhousing and ramming people into the boards and stuff. Sooner or later, someone gets hurt. It's like, what were you guys thinking? Why didn't you put a stop to it early on, And
yeah, I mean, it sounds like the refs kind of were letting things go and kind of lost control a little bit of the game. And then, I think at that point they were saying you can't eject her if you didn't eject the girls earlier. She still ends up getting ejected. But I think you're right, Randy. I think if you kind of lose control of your city or of your neighborhood, it's hard to then take that back.
And while we saw some violence over these No Kings and Gaza rallies over the weekend and for a few weekends before that, I feel when I watched, again, these clips are edited, but I feel like there's been a change in law enforcing, in policing. I saw a couple clips where, I don't know, with different venues. I don't know if you caught this, John, but one of the titles on the X post was cops tossing loony protesters. I can't repeat what they said. Like they're rag dolls, Basically, these guys were coming in and starting to come in against a line of like bicycle cops. One of the cops just takes them and like, you're gone. Pfft, he's gone. I love to see that. They're not messing around.
And there was one protest where you saw a guy and he did like a perfectly formed tackle. And it was just a citizen of a guy who was trying to get away. And so if we're back to this basketball analogy, you kind of get vigilante justice or citizen justice. If the refs aren't making a call, then Sophie Cunningham has to step up and say, enough is enough, y'all. And I think you're seeing that in some communities where people feel like if the cops aren't going to enforce this stuff, we're going to take matters into our own hands, which you really don't want to see.
When you this whole basketball the whole basketball thing, and Drake can probably relate, takes me back to the 2010s when the infamous game when Sophie Cunningham and crew played against South Carolina, and I think their big star, Asia Wilson, was playing rough and getting a lot of fouls, and then the war of words began. And what I'm going back to is playing enforcer for Sophie is not a new role.
Ah, okay. Well, so we're going to be talking with Brad Young, who's with the Hallsville Police Department, also has had other roles in law enforcement, just about the general atmosphere. What, how and when and if things have changed. I get the impression they are, but I'm an observer as a layperson. And when it comes to riots, when it comes to the incident up there in Minnesota, I'd like to know what was going through his mind as a police officer watching and the reporting coming out of what happened that day when that crazy alleged assassin was going to take out, some 45 people on his list. He shot a senator and his wife, and luckily they lived, but then he went and shot the former Speaker of the House there and her husband. They died, I think, right on the site there. So we'll talk about that with him at 8:08. Dr. Bob Onder, congressional representative from the 3rd District in Missouri, joins us at 7:08. Now, speaking of college sports, did you see, to their credit, Mizzou has come out and released how much they spent on this NIL. I didn't understand. Basically, the universities can funnel money to the athletes before. I always thought this was just like, okay, Drewing Ford or Mockins, automotive group, or
like endorsement deals,
or Stephanie's Trolley Company can write a check to Luther Burden because there's a picture of Luther waving from the trolley. That's not the way it works.
No, there's
you give money to the university. The university then has this.
And actually, Mizzou, it's not. You weren't really giving money directly to the university. It's like a collective. It's like a separate entity.
A collective. That sounds very Karl Marxist of you. The collective. Whoa, it gets even worse. No, so Mizzou spent. Are you ready for this? How much, John Marsh, did you think Mizzou spent last year on NIL awards? 2/3 of which went to football, 1/4 to basketball men's. The remainder was split among baseball. Oh, there's a little women's basketball and lower profile programs. How much you think to date?
Wow. I have no idea.
$31.7 million.
Pretty good if you can be on the receiving end of it.
To 125 athletes, I believe.
They said it varied month to month, but it ranged. The average was about 125 athletes a month.
Ranging from 65 to 155 with an average of 100. Wow. So this is now professional sports, but we call it college sports. We can buy players. And guess what?
Well, it certainly helped our football team.
Interestingly,
right.
This should be an allegory for federal agency and researcher and other people who benefit from taxpayer collectives called the federal government and the Senate and the House and the unelected bureaucracies. This should be an allegory. How much of that $31.7 million occurred just in the last month ahead of, wait a minute. Oh, yeah, the cap is coming up July 1st. $18 million. So how much of that $31 million in the last year that Mizzou spent buying players and retaining them with payola, how much do you think was spent in the last month with the impending cap coming up? 1/3, $10 million.
Wow.
Anyone got a problem with this system? I do. I have a serious problem with this system.
Does it have to do with a cap, or does it just what month was that?
June 2025, 10,279,000. The previous high was in May, 3 million. April, 2 million.
What about last June?
Last June, 1 million. But December of 23, March of 24 was less than 1 million.
I'm just thinking like the summertime as you're getting new players in, like, you know what I mean? Like it's a transition that maybe like that's just that's a time where you're paying more people because you're adding people to your teams.
Mm-hmm. Sure. January of 2025, that's when you're adding new people to the football team, right? 4 million, 4.7 million January of this year. Boy, it really, after December of last year, man, things really zoomed up. Yes?
Yeah, no, that makes sense because that's the deadline for recruits and a lot of that stuff. We also get $62 million, or there was a recent $62 million donation to Mizzou. I mean, this isn't just like, oh, you pay your taxes, then it's going to some pompous athlete. But, I mean, there's a lot of donor. The alumni network is very large with Mizzou. We're an SEC school. We get money not only from those donors, but also from the SEC itself. We had so many people make playoffs. We have a lot of money coming in from the SEC.
So this is the same Mizzou that can't come to an agreement with Anthem Healthcare, and people are scrambling to get medical care. I feel this daily. I feel this hourly. And we, the people, are funding a $50 million reactor, which is arguably a great cause, when there's money out here just flowing like a river to athletes. Now, I'm not putting down athletes, but I don't know, when someone catches a football in the end zone, does that save a life? Does that make a new diagnosis early to save a life?
I remember when we had the debate about this, Randy, when Luther Burden sat out the bowl game because he was a graduating senior and all that. We had one, I can't remember who it was. We had somebody on with us who said, hey, kids go to college to learn a trade. And if this is part of it, that was part of the argument, saying, well, Luther may have been, keeping himself healthy to have his payday in the NFL, sort of like Steph going to law school to learn a trade to make a living.
You saw that they scheduled a hearing on this MU dust-up, right, in the State House.
Yeah, no, they're having
Monday.
That. Was that Monday? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think they can. Mizzou is it's a publicly funded, at least partially, institution, and I think they owe some obligation to provide basic care for people. And I mean, I don't know. And again, I think it's a fabulous place. I like all the doctors that work there. I try to refer there, of course, currently in many departments. You may not know this, ladies and gentlemen. If you're listening, bad policy, Mizzou officials, healthcare. If you don't see a doctor that's a primary care doctor at at MU Healthcare, in certain departments, you can't get care at a specialty unless you're one of their patients. Public institution, funded, but yet discriminating against non-MU PCP patients? You tell me. That sound right? 573-874-9390. Be back.
This is Wake Up.
that are walking out of this courthouse, taken away from their families. They don't have the attention. They don't have the lawyers. And that's why the state of New York is providing $50 million to cover legal services for people who are finding themselves in this situation.
That's Governor Kathy Hochul announcing $50 million of taxpayer support for legal services for illegals. Now, I don't know, to my recollection, Stephanie, during the Biden years and even before, I had heard credible reporting that there were lawyers who were very sympathetic with the illegal invasion and they wanted to support those people. They were sort of coaching them on the laws and how they, if they said the right things with their asylum request, that would somehow give them at least one of those, return to court in 7-year kind of tickets, and they'd be released. $50 million, maybe that's not a lot in New York legal terms. I don't know. But you'd think there would be attorneys that would be sympathetic to that cause on the progressive side that would do that pro bono for those people. No? Or no?
I think there are some, yeah.
Yeah. The Democrats in these blue jurisdictions just don't seem to get how the majority, and I would say probably many, many more New Yorkers than she thinks are not on her side of the fence when it comes to that. It's like they're having a hard time paying the bills and putting food on the table and putting clothes on their kids. And their taxpayer dollars, which are outrageous taxes there, going to support illegals. I think America's had it with that. We don't mind giving a helping hand to someone who's trying to do the right thing in the right way by the right means. But, man, this kind of a thing, I don't know. That's just.
And I mean, I think when we look at the polling, that's the one issue that Trump unequivocally is winning on is border and immigration policy.
So I was asked in an interview where I was the guest the other day, Randy, what do you think of these politicians acting out like Senator Padilla, and what do you think about all the all of these continued support for handouts for illegals and so forth? And I, for one, my answer was I don't understand it. It's almost as though these progressives have lost the ability to process news, and you mentioned polling, and process sort of factual reality, right? In the face of it, they continue to double down. The psychology behind the way the progressives and the Democrats are acting. You saw this candidate for New York mayor, John. Did you see that? The candidate for New York mayor, I think he's maybe a second or third runner now, got arrested, got detained. No, a different guy yesterday. He grabbed a cop and he was trying to prevent the.
And then they said they were dropping all charges against him. They were going to prosecute him.
What do these people think do they really think there's enough of a base of support that's going to somehow galvanize enough support that they're going to win their particular race? Or are they just trying to make headlines so they can write a book or start a podcast? Or I don't understand it, because especially going into the midterms, these high profile acting out events, again, for most independents, sort of moderate Americans, I know that's not hitting a good chord with them.
Yeah, I think they're on the wrong path. I mean, remember what was his name who pulled the fire alarm, and he didn't get reelected, right?
No, you're right.
And so I
thought he got reinstated.
Maybe he did.
I think he did.
Well,
But he lost his election.
Yeah, I think he lost his election.
Primary.
I think, I don't think it's popular with the people, and I think the Democrats, they need a refresh. I mean, they need new leadership, and they need a different path if they expect to win any elections. Now, again, all tides are against us for the midterms. That's just how American politics goes. And there's so many issues, not only with the economy and the tariffs, but also with, these international conflicts that, despite the Democrats' misbehavior, I think we still have a lot of work to do before the midterms.
No, you're right. No, we've got to continue to talk a positive game, America first, moving forward. That was Jamal Bowman. Yeah, we'll have to see. I don't know. Did he get back into Congress or not? I thought
he did.
Okay, maybe he was. Well, yeah, if they want to keep endorsing this kind of behavior, fine, have at it, guys. We can make a lot of hay out of that. Bob Onder coming back in a while.
mortgaging our kids and our grandkids' future. And 70% of that spending is entitlements, Medicare, Medicaid, Social Security, and other so-called mandatory programs. If we're not, in the big beautiful bill doing anything regarding Medicare or Social Security, and that was the plan from the beginning, Medicaid has got to be a problem we've got to look seriously at. So, what does the big beautiful bill do regarding Medicaid? And again, I'm a physician who has taken care of Medicaid patients for over 30 years, as are you. Mm-hmm. It does a number of things. Number one, it requires eligibility checks on a regular basis. Mm-hmm. We know our Medicaid rolls are bloated with people who aren't eligible because during COVID and in most blue states, eligibility just isn't checked, and the Medicaid managed care companies just keep taking the checks every month. Number two, it requires work requirements for able-bodied working age adults, the Obamacare expansion population, 20 hours a week, a very modest requirement. I honestly wish the work requirements were stronger. It defunds Medicaid for illegal aliens. I don't know who would be against that, although apparently many in blue states are. And then it adjusts. It doesn't get rid of entirely the so-called hospital tax. The hospital tax is a system where hospitals, quote, tax themselves, but it is really a way to juice up what looks like a state's Medicaid contribution, which averages 40% in most states, in order to draw down more of the federal money from the federal government. That's probably the thing the hospitals are fighting the most right now. But to think that we don't need to do something about our Medicaid system in order to get our budgetary house in order, I think is mistaken.
That's Dr. Bob Onder, 3rd Congressional District representative from Missouri, with an interesting district that spans from western metro St. Louis all the way up to mid-Missouri. And it's an interesting and, I think, diverse district. And this first term is a controversial one, no doubt. He joins us on Wake Up Missouri.
Dr. Bob, what's your take? Is the U.S. military going to get involved in the strikes on Iran?
Yeah, I think we should not. President Trump was very committed to negotiating a deal where we would remain confident that Iran was not developing a nuclear weapon. And no question, the Iranians perhaps would like to. How close they were, I think there's dispute over, and I think there was dispute between the United States and Israel on that factual question. And Israel went ahead with the strikes. The United States has provided some defensive support for Israel in that. But no, I do not think it's in from everything I'm looking at right now. I do not believe it's in the United States' interest to be at war with Iran. I'm glad the Israelis are eroding the Iranians' nuclear production, but I think ultimately a peace deal along the lines that President Trump seems to be proposing is the best way out of this really dangerous situation that the Middle East is in right now.
Could you see a lane forward that would be different than the failed ventures into Afghanistan and Iraq, and I think we can say Ukraine in some way with our support there, where some people have said, look, if there is truly that 75, 80%, some say, of internal support for internal replacement of the theocracy that says death to America, that in that sense, supporting the Israelis without putting boots on the ground could lead to America first, national security-wise, regime change over there? Or is that a pipe dream?
Yeah. Well, needless to say, we support the Israelis in a very big way. We have for a long time, and we will continue to do so. But our experiments in the Middle East with regime change, in fact, the United States actively supported regime change back in the 70s when the Shah of Iran was deposed, an ally, and replaced with the current Islamist government. Regime change did not work well in Iraq, in Afghanistan. It didn't work well in the Arab Spring. I have no doubt that Iranians are dissatisfied with their government right now, but it will be Iran that will have to replace their government to a government more of their liking. Certainly, we would welcome some other government, but again, no boots on the ground for sure.
We were talking healthcare earlier. Have you been hearing from your constituents about the breakdown in the MU healthcare and Anthem negotiations? I know there's a hearing scheduled in the Missouri Senate to try to address some of those issues. Being in healthcare, I mean, what are you hearing, and what are your thoughts on the issue?
Yeah, I'm probably hearing, about the same as you. It would be an enormous loss for the folks who rely on MU for their health care, and of course the University of Missouri system itself. If those negotiations don't work out and bear fruit, I will tell you, health insurance companies have been really bad in terms of their relationship with providers, both physicians and hospital systems. I mean, every provider I hear from has issues with health insurance companies, not just not wanting to approve care for patients proactively, but then taking back money a year or two later with no explanation, very little due process. And then when the provider fights and fights and fights, they may or may not get the issue resolved in their favor. So I hope MU and Anthem are able to come to a deal. I'm not personally involved in those negotiations.
Bob, I'm just curious if you can give us a little behind-the-scenes glimpse into the interactions among congressmen with fellow congressmen who, frankly, just seem to have some unbelievable anti-American views. And I'm asking, this may sound a little asking for some sensitive feelings here, but you may have seen where your colleague in Congress, Representative Ilhan Omar, said that the United States is turning into one of the worst countries in the world. This woman who had refugee status and benefited from the beautiful bounty and prosperity and freedom of this country, saying that. What happens when you're on an elevator with Ilhan Omar?
Yeah. Well, I try to be pleasant when you're on elevators with people. Look, I think that attitude of someone who came here as a refugee and got citizenship and obviously has prospered in our great country. The idea that we're taking in folks like that who aren't assimilating really asks us whether our immigration system is fundamentally broke. And by fundamentally broke, I don't mean just we need more visas or fewer visas or even that we need to secure the border. But before 1965, the United States of America, decided what immigrants and refugees we wanted to take after 1965, with an emphasis on family reunification and a lot of nice sounding things. We now take quite a few immigrants who never assimilate and bring some of the really poisonous ideologies of their countries of origin to our country. I think we need to look in a big way at immigration reform. Yes, secure the border. Yes, detain and deport those illegally in our country. But we've got to really decide, do we want to decide who comes to this country, or do the immigrants themselves decide who comes to this country?
Wow.
And unfortunately, it's been the latter since 1965, and it has not worked. And Ilhan Omar is Exhibit A.
Yeah, well, I mean, couldn't be said better. Amen and amen to that. Dr. Bob Onder, maybe you could lead that charge to having some real meaningful assimilation first reform in our immigration system. Thanks for being with us. Appreciate you covering so much today. Thanks.
Thanks, Randy. Thanks, Stephanie. Have a great day.
All right. When we come back, hey, if you've got an older parent or older relative or older friend in your life, you'll want to listen up to Make Missouri Healthy Again. It could save their life and at least save a lot of infirmity for them. Stay tuned.
You're listening to Wake Up Missouri.
Hey, on Make Missouri Healthy again, let's talk about some bare bones facts about bones. If you're 20, 30, 40, even in your early 50s, you probably don't think about too much the health of your bones. But did you know that you start losing bone mass between 30 and 40? Guys, you start losing it after 40, especially if your testosterone, as it does, starts dropping a little bit. But women, you lose it probably starting in your mid-30s. And so you want to build up a big bone bank before that peak bone mass is reached. That way you have a little bit of a buffer there should you lose bones. Why is that important? Well, of course, bone health is good because it holds us up, can stand, holds up our skeleton. But if you fall and if you have weak bones, brittle bones, thinning bones, it can be catastrophic. Probably 20-25% of people who break a hip will be dead within a year because of complications.
I've heard that stat, and I've had people in my own life that it's happened. It all started with what was seemingly like a small fall.
Well, Nancy Pelosi broke a hip, recently, and she's, it's a life changer. And only about 15-20% of people really return to sort of normal function. The rest are disabled in some way or another, and it can lead to other problems. Now, there's a rise in falls in America. More than 1 in 4 adults over 65 report falling each year. We see this in our older parents, Helene and I. And so for those of you who are caring for, who love, who care about your older parents and friends, talk to them about the importance not only of their bone health, have them talk to their doctor about maybe getting a bone screening. Medicare pays for that starting at 65. There are reasons to get it before that. If you lose height, if you have a lot of risk factors, if you're on steroids for maybe a chronic lupus or a rheumatoid arthritis type thing, that can weaken your bones. And there's ways to help support your bones. Primary among them is a good diet, weight-bearing exercise, and vitamin D. At least 50% of the people I check a vitamin D level on are either deficient or absolutely insufficient. I mean, woefully deficient in vitamin D. Vitamin D helps you retain the calcium in your diet, and it helps prevent you. So it helps increase absorption of calcium from your diet, and it helps inhibit and prevent, well, not prevent, but reduce excretion into the urine. So it's a recruitment and retainment tool for calcium, and that helps put on bones, along with stressing your bones. Now, why are people falling? I think it has to do with our sedentary lifestyles. We're not active. We're not, if you're on an uneven surface, you're walking on a trail around Columbia or down in the Ozarks in Springfield or anywhere, you gotta, that balance act builds strength in the core. When you trip, who hasn't tripped over a corner of a rug that's up, right? We all trip. And
embarrassing.
Often what makes the difference between a fall, which can result in a fracture, which can be catastrophic, and not falling is your core strength. It's, I caught myself, and you get your balance. You lose that. You lose muscle mass. You lose bone mass. That leads to falls, and falls lead to fractures, and fractures lead to infirmity and death.
And I think your joints are stiffer. And I was really shocked, Randy, when I turned 40 and I went into my doctor and we had this conversation, and she said, look, you need to be building your muscle up because you need to be starting to worry about falling. And I'm like, wait, what?
Yes.
And she said, I've seen it time and time again, and it's really dangerous. And if you don't start now in, lifting weights and making sure you're taking care of your body, it can really be an issue later in life. And I mean, I think the article talks about people more like in their 80s and stuff, but she said, it can happen easily in your 60s.
And guys who love your gals, do you know that a woman in her mid-50s is more likely to die from a osteoporotic fracture than from breast cancer?
Really?
Yep. So it's a big deal. And it's not to minimize breast cancer, but let's just get things in perspective. Let's make Missouri healthy again. Be back in a few with more Wake Up Missouri. Stay tuned. think that in Trump version 2.0, what led to his resurgence was people just sick and tired. You said it earlier, Stephanie Bell. People are sick and tired of people getting away with things that harm their kids, that harm their communities, that harm themselves. And, law enforcement, let's just say the criminal justice system, it's seemingly turning a blind eye. Not in most of our listening area jurisdictions, for sure, but in metro, areas by all means, and certainly at the border. But I think that's been turned around. And we're going to talk with Brad Young, who's with the Hauswirth police at 808, just about generally policing, what's changed in terms of the temperature of law enforcement officers and how they process unfolding events and event threats. And John, we saw John Marsh. We saw this story about an officer-involved shooting in Saline County. This was just yesterday. And this hasn't really made high profile, but it's another example of people just going off the rails. Tell us about it.
Yeah, this was a deal where a police chase ended with a dead suspect after he shot a state trooper. Turns out that police in Concordia were chasing the guy on a motorcycle Tuesday night, and he was apparently wanted on murder charges from another state. Troopers say they spotted him. He then crashed the motorcycle, bailed off, and took off. And he was killed after exchanging gunfire with the state trooper who was hit in the bulletproof vest, and they say he had only minor injuries. So it's the way that one went.
And I don't know, John, but again, this is absolute speculation. But he was, a suspect in a homicide somewhere else? Is that right? Or
from outside the state of Missouri, they said. They didn't elaborate on that.
I'll bet you a nice steak at your favorite steak place, maybe over at CC's or something, or well, I'll just buy you one at Steele's Custom Meats. You can grill yourself.
Even better.
Either way, it's a good steak. That there were some minor infractions along the way that were either overlooked or under prosecuted. That's my opinion. It's a major bone of contention with me. I can't help but think that somewhere along the line, this young man or older man, whoever he is, didn't get some proper training in respect for authority, and there's limits to your freedom. I don't know. It just seems that way.
Impossible to say from what they've released in the case, but I mean, it's pretty good presumption if somebody's wanted on murder charges, something didn't go right.
The good news is the trooper has been released from the hospital, and next of kin notification of the suspect is still pending. I guess that's why they have not released anything.
Highway Patrol doesn't release names of accident or other victims anymore.
Yeah. So, boy, man, I just to be a police officer these days with the lower threshold for people shooting at you. Maybe it's always been that way, and it's just the 24-hour news cycle that we've seen since it really started with Kevin Brown, didn't it? Or, Michael Brown, where we saw that, and that was sort of the first incident of, a up close and personal, violent kind of a citizen police officer interaction. But man, during the Summer of Love, we saw how many? Was it 24 police officers that were killed during that time?
It was a bunch.
Yeah. John, you've been reporting on this for a while.
Yep.
Has the violence against police officers, in your estimation, changed?
Depends on the jurisdiction, but yes, I think there's a mindset out there, of it's always been an us versus them kind of thing with law enforcement and criminals and all, but sometimes the general public even gets roped into that. But I wouldn't want to be a cop. We have a couple of coworkers here at the radio station whose spouses are cops.
Uh-huh. What are you hearing as far as their attitudes?
Yeah, they don't say much, but I mean, they work for a couple of the major departments here in mid-Missouri, and it's scary, You worry about a family member who's out there, you're not sure if they're going to come home.
To me, it seems it's Stephanie, doesn't it seem sort of similar to being a military spouse, right? You don't know if that person's coming back because of their professional duties.
That's what they sign up for, and it's hard. I mean, I think you never want to take it for granted. They're putting themselves at risk to keep us all safe every day.
Man, I don't know.
Tough. Hey, Randy, I have to give some kudos to the Columbia City Council.
Okay,
Columbia, Missouri.
Wait a minute. Did you
City
spend
Council?
some time at the dispensary yesterday?
Perhaps.
Wait, say that again. You're going to give kudos to the Columbia City Council. Well, okay. Balls and strikes, Stephanie. Here she is.
I think so. Well, I read the headline and I'm like, oh boy, here we go again. This is going to be bad. I'm more wasting our taxpayer dollars because the headline is Columbia City Council discusses homeless transportation program. And I'm thinking, are we going to be paying for these people's Ubers? Like, what are we doing here? But yesterday, they just discussed it. It's still under discussion. It was presented by Ward 4 Councilman Nick Foster, and they said they are modeling it after a program in a different state that they said has worked in Lawrence, Kansas. They have this policy, and the folks there have said it's been really beneficial. And essentially, they're learning, and even Police Chief Jill Schluty commented on this, that folks who a lot of the people who end up homeless in Columbia are actually from somewhere else, and they come to Columbia to get mental health services, or they get locked up in jail. Well, then they get bonded out of jail, and they don't have the means to get home.
Oh.
And same for these folks who come here for some sort of services. They don't have means to get back to their family or back to wherever they were from, and they end up on the streets. And so they're finding more and more of these folks are just not native to Columbia. And so what Lawrence, Kansas does is they provide them temporary housing for a few days while they arrange travel, and then they send them back to wherever they were from.
One-way ticket.
Yeah.
Oh,
I think I kind of like this plan.
That sounds like the $1,000 incentive for self-deportation that Trump's doing, right, with illegals here, right? I mean, in a way.
The flip side of that is those entities out there who have that presumption, we've got these homeless folks here. Let's give them a bus ticket to Columbia or Springfield.
Yeah, that's
seriously.
Yeah, really.
So it works both ways.
They do say, the room at the inn does a lot for homelessness in Columbia, and they said they've been providing bus tickets for folks to try to get home since its inception. But they're saying the program could cost, tickets would range from $30 to $300, and they said there's some remaining ARPA funds that could be tapped to try to, do this program. And I think, if it's working in other communities and decreasing homelessness, I assume if you go back to where you're from, right, there are resources available there. Perhaps you have family, whatever. If the only reason why you can't find a place to stay here is because you're not from here, I think this is a good plan.
How people land here, though, in the first place is interesting to me. Is there maybe a very generous menu of social services that aren't available or that's not on par with other places? It's above par?
Being a bigger city, I think certainly Columbia has resources that other folks don't. And so they're saying they're coming in town for medical or legal reasons or being arrested while they're here. Jill Schluty said, if you get arrested on an out-of-county warrant and you bond out of jail, you might not have a way to get back to, she says, Montgomery City or Sedalia or wherever it is. So whether it's through the legal system or seeking some sort of health services that maybe aren't available elsewhere, that's what folks are thinking.
This is what they call greyhound therapy, I think is the word that I've heard used on some of the things on there. And then kind of going back to the thing, especially big cities, handing out bus tickets and pointing people to smaller communities just to cut down on their own homeless population.
The Room at the Inn director, John Trapp, said a lot of people come from out of the county to MUPC, Missouri Psychiatric Center, and then they're released and they're just trying to get back home. And so they're seeking services that, aren't available perhaps in their home city, but then don't have the resources to get back. So kudos to the Columbia City Council for even considering this. I think if it's working elsewhere, and it means that, and I mean, they talk about it in the article. Look, we can't be the homeless center of all of Missouri, right? Like, it puts a strain on our resources. So spending a little bit more resources to get these people back to a place where they might have their own resources or family.
Well, remember the anecdotal comments we had from Jefferson City leaders when the homeless camps were taken down in Columbia a couple of times, and they said immediately after that, Jefferson City in particular saw a growing homeless population and said that what they'd heard, many of those folks were people who'd bailed from Columbia when their their campground was torn down.
Well, it's interesting. You bring up the homeless situation. I know it's a problem in Jefferson City. It's a problem in Springfield. Any larger community, it's a problem. And I'm wondering how our Springfield area listeners are satisfied or not with their city fathers and moms managing this issue. I know there are a lot of, the Salvation Army, the Victory Shelter, the Veterans Coming Home Center, because many of our homeless are vets. Wonder, if there's any successes that we should talk about and share among our communities, right? Because indeed, I think it's good to learn from other folks rather than, reinvent the wheel yourself. And that's a good idea. But there was this, Columbia purchased some land we joke about it and call it the homeless hotel, but it's going to be like a center where people have to have, I think, some responsibility and meet some kind of criteria to get a ticket to that. But I haven't heard anything about the development of that site or further movement towards that facility. Has anyone? I haven't heard anything. So I don't know.
I thought it was, they were talked about getting it open initially by this spring. Like a couple months ago. March is what sticks in my mind.
But have they built anything? I thought it was a new structure they were going to build. I don't know. I haven't heard anything.
Maybe it was March of next year they were talking about. Don't they call it what's the name for it? Gosh, I can't remember.
The Opportunity Center, I think.
Yeah, the Opportunity Campus.
The Opportunity Campus. A campus. Opportunity Campus. Well, maybe some of those $32 million that they're giving to athletes, they could give some opportunity to homeless people to, do something good. Mizzou could make a little
When the homeless people
donation.
run in a touchdown against Georgia, I'll give them $31 million.
They can block out the foulers on Caitlin with Sophie Cunningham. Yeah, we'll talk to them.
In case you're just joining us, we talked about a story where Mizzou apparently is much more transparent than other universities in how much NIL, name, image, and likeness money has been funneled to athletes.
I'm not sure I think somebody submitted a records request and they had to disclose all of the documents. I think that's how we got all the information.
So it's hard to compare to other SEC schools, for instance, how much spending is going on that way. But $32 million in the last year, according to Mizzou's own records, has gone to an average of 125 athletes a month. And it's really accelerated in the last 6 months because there's a cap on that spending of $18 million under the new NCAA agreement or settlement. John, when we come back, what's your take?
To stay with athletics, the tale of the butt-sniffing bat boy.
Tails and butts and bat boys. Oh, no, when we come back.
This is Wake Up Missouri.
Arrived early at Nationals Park. Bruce is a 2-year-old golden retriever and fetched a bat during a ceremony Saturday before the Nationals lost to the Marlins as part of a Pups in the Park promotion. He's been retrieving bats the last 2 seasons with Washington's AAA affiliate, the Rochester Red Wings. Bruce this time was wearing a bandana with an MLB debut patch. When he showed up, got his very own commemorative bat, and then took a route from the dugout towards first. After Nationals receiver Zach Brixey dropped the bat in foul territory before the bat dog collected his quarry. And the owner said he's great, he's goofy, and he's the perfect candidate for the Red Wings and now for the Nationals. Bruce spent about 50 minutes on the field and did a couple of practice bat retrievals before Nationals catcher Riley Adams stopped to pet him on his way out for pregame work, to which he answered nature's call, the dog, not the catcher. But as it goes in the majors, he didn't work the actual game and had to return to his AAA duties afterwards. So now you know the rest of that story. No word on if he got any NIL funding while he was in college.
So does the dog hold forth during the AAA games?
Yeah, he's the bat boy.
Isn't that something?
He's not shagging balls, but he's bringing the bats back to the dugout.
And I'm sorry, did I miss it? What brand of dog is he?
A golden retriever. So
Yeah. Well, that takes a bat's not a light item. What's a bat weigh? Pound and a half, 2 pounds?
36 ounces.
I mean, I've seen some dogs carrying some pretty big sticks.
I don't know. That's pretty big. That's a pretty big lift.
It's golden retriever, so and he's trained for it.
That's fun.
I don't know. All the golden retrievers I've had in my life have been either like really, really stupid, like the one I have, like not a thought behind the eyes. I don't think my dog could do that. He'd go running off with a bat. I actually saw a video of a dog that was doing that for like a travel ball league, and he took the bat and ran into the other team's dugout and just ran away from like their team. So I don't know.
Retrievers, you train them to retrieve, just like you do with birds. You train them up on the bat, and they'll bring it to you.
A question about dogs. So we had this pit bull boxer mix, Mia, which we had to put her down because she had bladder cancer last fall. It was sad. We hated to do that. Tough dog. I mean, I saw this dog take on and kill a live raccoon. I mean, that's a tough dog. And now we have the pit bull shepherd Labrador retriever mix, and he can be pretty tough. When I told you about the Kong, he gets a hold of that Kong rubber bone, and I can literally spin him around off the ground, and I mean, I'm talking one clap of thunder, one heavy rainfall pitter-pattering on the roof, and he's in the bathroom on the bathroom, bath mat, and, sometimes quivering, some not. Are all dogs that afraid, or is it just our dogs that are that afraid of storms? Because Mia was the same way. I
had a retriever mix. It was like that. You could shoot guns and take them afield all the time. And the first lick of thunder, he tore our chain link dog pen apart one time to get out of it.
What is it? There must be something about that combination of the wind, the rain, and the thunder that just drives these dogs just batty. I don't know. Wild. All right. Well, when we come back, we're going to be at 8:08 talking to Brad Young, former police officer, a deputy sheriff, a drug task force guy, I understand as well. Now retired, so he can speak at length, I think, about policing, maybe what was and what his perception of what is now, and as it relates to the riots and so much more. Stay tuned for that on Wake Up Mo. in an ever-inflammatory environment in America, and polarized environment, is Brad Young. He's former Hallsville police officer, a former sheriff's deputy, and he joins us now to talk about that. Thanks for being with us, Brad.
Good morning, sir. How are you?
I'm good. I think we look at this in the context of, we're just seeing, in the Columbia area, I think in the Springfield area, in every area, it seems as though the threshold for disputes, whether they're domestic disputes or whether they're drug-related, to pull out a gun and start firing seems to be lower. Now, that could be reporting, but as a police officer and being connected with that community, is that true or false? Is it just perception and reporting, or is it reality?
I'd say it's reality. It seems to be the police officers have to be a little more diligent, compared to 20 years ago, 15 years ago, than what we, now. You never know who may have that firearm, who won't be afraid to use it.
Well, that's the problem. Now, we can talk about, whether, laws against gun ownership would help that or not. But the fact is, there's guns are prevalent. 300 some odd million guns in America, if not more.
We already have very strict gun laws in place. And usually the ones that are using it aren't adhering to that. So making it harder for law-abiding citizens to protect themselves, I think would be, wouldn't be good in the long run.
Yeah. So,
yes.
Okay, so we have the observers, John Marsh, Brian Hauswirth, Mike Murphy. I have talked about this. We've talked about this a lot on the air. It seems as though whenever we're reporting on some violent crime, whether it's a rape or a murder, attempted murder, whatever, it seems as though these guys, as a rule, have a rap sheet a mile long. And there's this pattern of low-level crime, higher-level crime increasing, and then pretty soon someone gets hurt or killed, right? What frustrations does law enforcement have in terms of the criminal justice system on the larger context?
We're very frustrated. I won't give specifics on areas or anything like that, but I can say that I had a gentleman that fought over narcotics, drugs, tried to swallow said stuff, ended up breaking a hand over this, and the prosecuting attorney system that was going through released the guy and ended up giving him a misdemeanor. Not less than a year later, he was charged with murder over an overdose. And it's not just in that area. It's rampant across the United States.
Talk to us about the angle that people think out there, especially with small communities, and say, well, if you're going to be a cop, go be a cop somewhere small like Hallsville. I think, what was it, a year ago when we had the big standoff in Hallsville where the guy ultimately killed himself?
Yes, sir. So, small community policing has changed in the last 10 to 15, 20 years. It used to be, the Barney Fife, small town, stuff like that. Everybody knew everybody and appreciated you. Not so much anymore. The big city problems have moved to the small towns. I have worked most of my career within small towns. And I can say when I first started, you did not see a lot of the big city problems, but you are definitely see it being pushed out now.
Talk to us a little bit about how recruiting's going. I know it's been a struggle for several years. Are you starting to see some ease in that? Like, what's your current staffing level?
Recruiting is very tough, especially in this political climate that is going against police forces. Look at Columbia, for instance. How many officers are they down? I honestly don't know of a single big department that is fully staffed, and many of the small rural community departments like Hallsville and other towns are staffed.
That's Brad Young, former police officer, a deputy sheriff, and now, has an all-state insurance agency. So, I guess we need more insurance because there's more opportunities for violence these days. I don't know. Hey, let's talk about, let's pivot to these metropolitan riot scenes that we see. I think there was a time, I don't think that's gone, but there was a time in the 20 teens and even during the 2020s, that law enforcement, back the blue was a bad word when the progressives were in charge, right? It was defund the police. Police are evil, they're corrupt, they're whatever. And I mean, it was just no respect at all. We saw those so-called Summer of Love peaceful protests devolve into just outright mayhem, looting, riots in our big cities. My sense is that tide is turning, and even though there were some cars burned in L.A. and there's a few stores were looted, I'm seeing video clips, Brad, with cops some guy trying to approach a bicycle police line. And I mean, man, the minute he touched one of those guys, they just threw him down like a rag doll. And in some cases, they're just trying to get through a line. Have police been given some different marching orders based on that failed experience of letting them get away with a little and a lot ends up happening?
I honestly can't give a straightforward answer to that. Being out for a few years, I can't give an answer as to what's changed or what the new procedures are or anything like that. But what I can say is you hit the nail on the head. It for quite a few years because certain administrations, starting with Michael Brown and Ferguson area, and allowing this to go on. And that's where like you said, the back to blue, the hatred towards law enforcement and anything associated with it, I believe stemmed from and made it so hard for these officers on the street to do their job.
So put yourself in a position of you're a police officer in a metropolitan area, maybe even a smaller metro area like a Columbia or a Springfield or a Jefferson City, and you hear word that there's going to be a No Kings so-called peaceful protest or whatever, and it actually starts devolving, and then your boss, whether it's a sheriff or a police officer, a police chief, says to the media, as did the police chief in L.A., we're overwhelmed. Would there be resentment if the president, or a governor, called in the National Guard to give some kind of support or not? I mean, is there good camaraderie between local and military, support?
So if that situation happened and I was working at the time, I would absolutely welcome that in. If we're getting overwhelmed, the boss, the sheriffs, the chief, stating that, then I mean, they know what's going on. They know that, we need help. And if they're willing to bring in that help, it would be well received. Many law enforcement officers are prior military, whether it be Marines, Army, or whatever branch. And so, that camaraderie anyways would be there to welcome them in.
Yeah. Final personal question. Was your wife on blood pressure medicine when you were an active police officer, and did she go off of it when she knew you might come home at night?
Yes, she was constantly worried.
Yeah,
yes, sir.
Yeah. I can't imagine. I mean, we have a daughter whose husband is Special Forces, and we're always on pins and needles, and I know she is, and I think there's probably some alignment there. And so we always think about not only are those police officers on the front lines, but in their own way, so are the support, the family of officers as well. Hey, well, thanks for your service, and thanks for sharing some of this behind the vest secrets for us. We appreciate that. And
yes, sir.
All the best to you in the future. Thanks a lot, Brad Young. Appreciate it.
Thank you for having me.
Interesting insights from a guy that was doing it and has been there. And interesting how he said there's no doubt a lot of frustration in the policing community, John, that, wow, how come that criminal justice system can't put the lockdown on these guys before something evil, truly evil happens?
And even, and as he said, small town policing isn't like the Andy Griffith Show anymore with Barney Fife and all. It's just as dangerous out there as it is in a big city, potentially.
Yeah. A lot of loose cannons. And I just think about look, a lot of these crimes, I think we see a lot of the crimes in downtown Columbia are happening at 1, 2, 3 o'clock in the morning after the bars have closed. So alcohol has that defiltering influence on people, right?
Potentially.
So does weed. So does tetrahydrocannabinol, otherwise known as THC. And I wonder if this becoming more and more prevalent and easily accessible, if we're not just unleashing people's primitive wiles, I just get concerned about that. Oh, well, let's see what happens in the markets. Let's see if those investors have their primitive wiles unleashed and in which direction when we come back with the Morning Bell and Stephanie Bell at 8:24.
You're listening to
There's that bell ringing. Is the market going to ring our ears favorably?
It didn't yesterday, Randy. We had the NASDAQ down 0.91%, S&P down 0.84%, Dow down 0.70%. Driving the losses yesterday was health, consumer discretionary, and materials. The only sector that was up was energy. And as we look at the markets today, it looks like the futures are actually in the green, so maybe a little bit of a bounce. We're also watching very closely. The Federal Reserve will release its economic outlook at 2 p.m. Then Jerome Powell will hold a press conference at 2:30. That's Eastern. The expectation is that interest rates hold steady.
And the analyst in the oil market, Stephanie, as the prices are reaching, I think the last 6 months, the high, the analysts don't know what to think with this Iran-Israeli conflict. But that impacts the whole economy.
It really does. And, of course, also a topic for the Fed conference today is the retail sales numbers, which were out yesterday, which fell pretty sharply in May. So not great economic news. But, again, I think they're just going to hold the interest rate steady. One new product that you might want to add to your Christmas list, Randy, you've heard of the Trump Mobile.
Yes.
But this is Trump Mobile. Spelled
Trump Mobile.
Trump Mobile.
As in like T-Mobile, Verizon, AT&T?
T-Mobile.
Wow.
The Trump family has announced a new Trump phone and cell service coming soon. It's the phone looks awesome. You can get the T1 and it's gold and it has an American flag on the back. You can pre-order it now. I think the website, let me look here, trumpmobile.com. Okay. So it's pretty controversial because, everyone loves to hate on the Trump family and say how they're just using the presidency to, pocket a bunch of cash. Apparently, the Trump family made over $600 million last year licensing his name for various products, including Bibles and watches. Now they have their own cell phone service. It's very much like kind of like one of those free agent services where it will connect to existing networks like AT&T, Verizon, and T-Mobile, but it's kind of like Mint Mobile or Smartless Mobile where you get the phone and you buy this plan and then it connects to the other cell providers' networks. So
you have to go to the Treasury Department to get your smart card reloaded for the phone?
Wouldn't that be great? Well, I love, they are like expert marketers and this is no exception. So it's a no contract plan. It includes unlimited wireless calling, text, and data. There's also a telehealth component, which is interesting. But guess what the monthly price is for the cell phone service? Oh, come on, Randy.
$80.
$47.45.
Oh my God.
It's very good. And it includes free citizenship if you get the gold plan.
There we go. Well, this new T1 Gold smartphone, it is an Android, but it's going to retail for about $499. I think that's relatively affordable when you think about, every Apple iPhones, right? I mean, now they're well into the $800, $900, $1,000.
Hey, Stephanie, you proud of me?
Did you get a new phone?
I did.
Oh my goodness!
Well, Helene had an XR, like 10 years old. So we went over and we got, and I had a chance to upgrade, so I did just because.
And you got the Max too, the big one.
Of course.
Yeah. Did you have a Max?
Max
before?
matters.
I love my Max. I can't go back to the tiny phone.
Well, you can get a smaller version, but I like the bigger screen because I do a lot of patient care on this. But look at this. Look at this holder that I got.
You kind of have like a pop
Look at that. It's got
case.
like a.
Oh, I kind of like that.
What do you think of that? But the problem is, I thought it was maybe.
He's got a stand. It flips down off the case, and he can then prop his phone up.
Yeah, so it's very good. But they say that this is like AI ready now, right?
Yeah.
And we talked about AI being announced. They were enhancing their AI at Apple.
Yeah, an Apple phone now, if you downloaded, even if you don't have a new phone, if you downloaded the latest iOS, it comes with AI in it, and you can actually switch off. It's basically opted in, and so if you don't want the AI, you can go into the settings and switch that off.
You'll have to tell me about that because I haven't. I'm still grokking and Geminiing.
So since you just got a new phone, you're not going to get the Trump phone?
Heck no. Look, I heard about Trump wine. I heard about Trump University. I heard about Trump steaks.
I still want
and I'm not going there.
I still want a pair of those sneakers. I
don't know.
Cool.
Look, that's a good question. We need to talk about this sometime and ask listeners to weigh in. 573-874-9390. Maybe we'll cover this after the bottom of the hour break here. I have an inverse relationship with marketing. The slicker, the more forceful the marketing, the less I trust that the product is worth anything. Is that a good calculation or a not calculation?
I'm going to have one of our sellers talk to you before you leave today.
No, I think we all know what slick marketing is, like ShamWow. Hey, no, just tell me I have a good product. Try it out. You'll love it. There's slick, yucky marketing, and there's good, solid marketing.
4547 is a pretty cool thing.
Too slick.
I think just local news.
Got AirPods? Welcome back into Wake Up Missouri. I'm Randy. There's Stephanie along with John and Drake. Who has AirPods or something like it? Yeah? Raise your hand. John?
Of course.
No AirPods, John?
I did have, but my kid ran off with them.
That the same kid that took apart the lawnmower and couldn't get it back together when he was a kid? Yeah. Okay, so there's a story in the Journal about like asking the question, when did we decide that, you know, you don't have to worry about etiquette when you have your AirPods in and you can just wear them anytime and you don't have to have a conversation? There's the story of this doctor in St. Louis, family medicine doctor, Dan Wiesel, who says he's noticed more patients keeping their earbuds in even after he walks into the exam room and introduces himself. At first, I think that's rude, he says, but then I wonder, maybe it's an autism treatment because that helps focus them. Maybe, there is a legitimate purpose, but not knowing whether they're on or off, not knowing whether you're being listened to, that's a frustration. Stephanie?
I think, yeah, for a lot of people in customer service, they also talk about like people in drive-thrus or like you're trying to order food or something and they're trying to interact with you and they're like, can you even hear me? Like what, your AirPods are in, you can't tell. And now that they're noise canceling, sometimes, you can't tell if they can hear you or not. I'm guilty. I have AirPods. I thought maybe I could live without them. And I don't know whether I lost a pair or they went bad. And it was only a couple days before I had to repurchase my AirPods. And I think there's something that I won't ever go without. And I'm guilty of like keeping them in when I'm interacting with other people. Sometimes I'll put one in so I can still like listen to a podcast or listen to music and interact with people. But, they're a staple now. This person said they went through the drive-thru and they went to check their food and they found an AirPod in the bottom of the bag. So somebody in the drive-thru had the AirPods in and lost one. I'm thinking these things are expensive. I'd go after that. And apparently that employee got in trouble because they're like, oh, it's food contamination or something. But, I think it's just something we're going to have to get along with. I find it awkward too, because sometimes I'll be like, oh, hey, and I'll start a conversation with someone and then they'll like point and then they're on the phone and you're like, oh, sorry.
Oh, yeah.
But especially like me, I've got long hair. So oftentimes you can't see if I have my AirPods in or not. So it does create some like awkward in-person situations.
Yeah, it does. Sometimes you think the person in the store or a line is talking to you, and it turns out, like you said, they've got their earpods in and they're doing a phone call with somebody.
But you said, Randy, like some people, like, are they using it to like manage some sort of disorder or stress or whatever? And I think I do that sometimes. Like if I'm doing something I don't really want to do, or like, I think music for me is really calming. And so I like having, I actually wore AirPods a little bit walking around Disney, I remember, because I was like so anxious and like it was causing me a lot of stress that just having a little bit of music in my ear, I think like lowered my blood pressure.
Yeah. I used to do that and I realized it's just a distraction. I'm not as focused if I've got other noise going on. But even some Gen Zers, this is interesting. There's more and more stories coming out that Gen Zers are voluntarily, intentionally limiting their technology use. Some Gen Zers worry about whether earbuds that are permanent fixtures signal a degradation of the culture. It's the Schrodinger's cat of communication, says one. Someone might be listening to you. They may not be. And so, this guy refers to the quantum physics paradox, where an object can seem to exist in two states at once until reality is revealed.
Well, they can also be used as hearing aids.
Huh?
You might need to check that out. They can be used as hearing aids. And there's the, conversation awareness mode on them where whenever someone's talking to you, it'll turn off the music or it'll do X, Y, and Z.
Well, and honestly, what's more rude, having your AirPods in or talking on speakerphone in public, or like having a kid who's like playing a game or doing something really loud in a restaurant? Put the dang headphones on. I'm sorry.
Preach, Stephanie. I am tired of those old, any people talking really loudly to their speakerphone in some aisle. It's the most annoying thing.
How's that different than someone walking down the street looking like a schizophrenic talking and they're not on their phone? Oh, it's the AirPods.
It's because I can't hear the other side of the conversation.
But you think they're talking to themselves. You don't know, people
That's not
do
bothering
talk
me.
to themselves.
I do like, and so this is another, I guess, pitch for the Meta AI glasses, or what are they called? Meta Ray-Bans, because they have, they wear like a sunglasses and they've got the speaker and the mic in the side of the sunglasses. But what's nice about those is if somebody comes up to you and says like, hey, or what, you can hear. So like I'll wear them sometimes on airplanes because with the AirPods, the stewardess is like, can I get you something? And a lot of times with the noise canceling, you don't hear, and then they have to like tap you. It's awkward. So if I have the glasses on, I can still hear what's going on around me and not be rude to other people, but I can still listen to my music or my podcast.
Well, when I'm on the airplane and I see the stewardess approaching 2 rows down, I take out my AirPod because I know she's going to be addressing me.
I'm just amazed you brought up the...
No.
I'm just amazed that you brought up Schrodinger's cat and that whole quantum mechanics debate about cats in boxes with bombs and all that.
Well, the other physics analogy that I think applies with this whole Iran-Israel thing is the Heisenberg uncertainty principle. Because we don't know. We don't know what's going to happen, right? Where is that electron going to be floating?
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. This Iran-Israel thing has me nervous because I really want, okay, I'm going to admit it. I want Trump to drop the bunker busters. I just want it to happen. I'm
not surprised. That tracks, Randy. I'm not surprised.
I want him to do that. And then I've said that before. We should just take care of business, eliminate the threat to America. That is a threat to America, their nuclear program, and then leave.
But I think this morning we already got a threat back from Iran that said, hey, if America gets involved, you're going to regret it.
Yeah, right.
And so, I mean, the question is, if we just drop the bunker buster, like now we're involved, like can we just then walk away?
Yes.
You think?
We're already,
100%.
But we're already involved. I mean, we're already defending that we're knocking down their missiles.
I mean, we're supporting.
Oh, I see. No, you're right. They've
been very careful about
we're in a defensive posture now.
It's a lot harder to walk away when you're funding an entire state that is trying to, go back and forth with Israel than it is to just drop a bomb yourself. That's how it feels. I mean, we're giving Israel so much money, and I'm kind of sick of it personally. I'd rather just send the bombs ourselves.
Well, we can. We have it as a policy that we will not share our bunker buster technology. That is, I didn't realize. I thought it was like a single big, beautiful bomb. That's a BBB there for you. See, it isn't. There's 2 bombs. One bomb goes in and creates like a 300-foot hole. Then a second bomb burrows deeper into the hole and does more damage. And
they said, if they wanted to take out the Fordo nuclear site, it would take multiple bunker busters, to reach what they needed to do.
And one B-2 bomber pilot said in an interview that those planes, those remarkable stealth bombers, can carry. The implication was that they've reported 2, but he implied they could do more. John, I heard that this morning. But you're right. I mean, we know at least 2, right?
Mm-hmm. They're 30,000-pound bombs.
My God,
this might be a really stupid question, but these sites where they're developing all of this stuff, is there any risk to us like bombing those sites? Like, what's there that
nuclear fissionable material.
Right. So, is there a risk when you bomb a site that might have, other materials in it?
Well, Iran will switch from oil production to their version of the Silver Dollar City glass blowing demonstration.
Well, they reported that the WC-135, the Constant Phoenix aircraft, was up in the air, and its sole purpose is to sniff for fallout in the atmosphere and monitor all those things. So, and there were some reports that the Natanz nuclear site was leaking some radiation. Yeah. So you bomb nuclear sites, that's what you get.
That's what I thought.
Yeah.
No fallout for here in America is what I'm hearing, and more devastation for Iran.
And hey, what's the update on our friend Chris Arps, by the way? He's
he left Jordan. Yesterday and was on his way home. I imagine he's home now. We'll be following up with that. Yeah,
good for him.
Yeah, but they took a road trip to Jordan and then flew out of Jordan, and that seems to be the route of exodus for most people over there.
Chris and his wife and the group he was with were right in the midst of it in Jerusalem through the whole thing.
I heard that interview yesterday as I was on the road. Couldn't be here yesterday, but I heard that interview with Dov. Forget his last name. Friend of Peter's. Over there in Tel Aviv. It was really compelling stuff. It was really interesting. So hopefully I'd like to keep in touch with Dov. We're going to see if we can maybe set something up on some kind of a regular basis. I don't know. I'm sure. But, man, when you hear these reporters, you talk to Chris, it's like, yeah, we were in the bomb shelter only once last night. It's been 3 times every night until, it's like, hello? That's just every day. That's normal, like, go out and put the trash at the end of the street. No big deal.
That's I saw videos of folks, like, at a hotel. It was like a Hyatt or whatever, and they're like, oh, everyone's just chill, getting on the elevator, or going to the bomb. And I'm like, if I hear, like, bomb, sirens, I'm like, freaking out. And they're just like, okay, time... it's like John. It's like working at the Truman Building and seeing the fire alarm get pulled. It happens like once a month. They all file orderly out into the street, wait around, and then they go back.
Smoke a cigarette, go back to work.
Right.
Did Jamal Bowman go to Truman?
No, and the deal on him was he was
not reinstated.
Well, and he wasn't reelected. He lost his primary.
Yeah, that's right.
He was the first of like the squad people to go down, I think.
So. We're going to continue to watch this because, Trump left the G7 meeting early. Now, that may have been staged. He may have done that just to bring more urgency of a message to the mullahs over there and to the Ayatollah. But he left there, and then there was a national security meeting yesterday afternoon, right? That ended somewhere around 3 o'clock our time. But we haven't heard any more of that. Is he going to drop the bomb? Is he not going to drop a bunker buster? I don't know. We'll have to find out. Now, I did make some comments about marketing earlier and slick marketing and everything. I want to be clear. And we need to shout out to our colleague, Josh Ryan, who won another Mercury Award for those Steve's Pest Control commercials. Now, see, I don't call that slick marketing. That's smart marketing. Because Steve at the end of those commercials says, I guarantee everything, I'll take care of it, and I'll come back till I'm a customer. I can tell you they do that.
And my kids will randomly sing the song, right? It's memorable.
But that is smart marketing. It's entertaining. I just wait for what's going to be the next funny termite story, that they go, I'm a termite. I'm in the termite army and I love those things. They're great. That's different than the Trump watch one. You're going to want a Trump watch. You know what it's about. It's about me. It's a great watch. There's no greater watch. Come on. It's probably some Chinese movement.
What?
In that watch.
You're totally tricked by that perfume or cologne commercial.
Oh, that's good marketing.
You're obsessed with that commercial, and you're like, if all the women smell my cologne and it brings all these beautiful women toward me, I'm buying this cologne. Is that all it takes?
If you...
If you're the president.
If you're me and you want to appeal to my beautiful wife, you're desperate for anything. Maybe cologne will do it. I don't know. I keep trying.
Maybe a Trump watch.
A Trump watch. That's what I'll do. I'll flash the Trump watch, put on some Gravité cologne. There you go. Back with the wrap-up after this.
This is Wake Up Missouri.
that time of the program when we look at our pile o' prep and go over what's left. There's so much left. We're not going to cover it all, but let's start with John Marsh.
Yeah, well, there's a chance of some severe weather in mid-Missouri into this afternoon. The Weather Service telling us the best chance of severe weather will be in southeast Missouri, south of Rolla. And after a few thunderstorms overnight in the western Ozarks, we could see a second round of severe weather this afternoon and evening, mainly east Springfield. Weather Service says along and south I-44 under a level 2 slight risk for severe weather. But they could see over, like we said, southeast part of the state could see some $half-sized hail and stronger storms in that direction. So about 3 to 8 this afternoon.
Okay. Yeah, well, we'll have to keep an eye on it. I mean, this weather pattern is so different this year. It's so changeable. Yeah, crazy. Well, thanks for that, John. We'll keep an eye on it, and I'm sure Don will be reporting on any post-hoc analysis on that tomorrow, as well as you and Brian. Stephanie, what do you have?
Dave Griffith, state representative, has announced he's going to run for Cole County clerk. He is termed out, and the current Cole County clerk, Steve Korsmeyer, has said he's not going to run for re-election. This would be, the primary will be in August 2026, but a name that you've heard many times on this program, and we know how important our clerks are.
Yep.
Although we talk a lot to the Secretary of State about elections, really the data, the nitty-gritty comes down to your clerks. I think we've got really strong clerks across the state of Missouri that keep our elections really protected, and I would expect no less from Representative Griffith.
And I know with the advent of early voting, we talked to Mr. Kortmeyer about some of the challenges with limited precincts our locations last time. But I know he's working on that, right? Increasing, I think, some access there. The next one.
And he said the same challenges county clerks all over the state have had, finding enough poll workers. I was going to say volunteers, but they get a small stipend for a working election day. But boy, oh boy, and it's a lot of times retired folks, and sometimes that employee pool kind of diminishes for them.
Yeah.
The other person we've been seeing up this morning on Fox, our own Senator Eric Schmidt's got a big hearing today about Biden's decline. And Randy, you and I were talking off air. I mean, he's just catapulted from state treasurer to attorney general, and he's really making a name for himself in D.C. And these hearings are a really big deal. And this kind of kicks off, I think, what we think is going to be a set of hearings about what was really going on there.
It'll be fun to see that, because there's been talk that at a minimum it will expose what I think it's sort of a like we told you so moment for many of us who were dismissed when we said, look, you can see it starting when Joe was in the basement during the 2020 campaign, right? I mean, during COVID. But I think it can also, maybe in a best case scenario, think about some of the pardons he gave. And you got to wonder how much of that was his doing and how much were people not his doing. And would that potentially, I don't know what the route would be to that, but undoing some presidential actions, that were done when he was under duress. A big question I have is, I'm fascinated by this. His doctor, Kevin O'Connor, right? If he gets on the stand, I've talked a lot with people, legal scholars and others. I don't know what your thoughts are, Stephanie, but isn't there I think there's probably some HIPAA protections there. I mean, he's not bound to say what was going on with the president, is he?
No, I don't think so. I mean, I would assume that those are,
But if he takes the fifth on a HIPAA basis.
Can't really take the fifth. It's not really self-incriminating, but I think he could say that, they're patient, doctor.
Well, but if they said, hey, here's the statement that he's fit for. Remember that statement was at that last exam that he's fit and ready to go to be the president.
I mean, I think it calls into question his credibility, given our other senators' comments on Fox that Biden was getting lost in his own closet in the White House to say everything's perfectly fine.
You're so right. Hey, well, thanks for being with us. Be out on the lookout for some severe weather this afternoon. Stay safe. We'll see you tomorrow on Wake Up Missouri.
Bye.